The scripts that you asked me to read, this one-sided right-wing script, suffer from a vindictive, malicious approach. Even the right-wingers at whom this script is aimed are going to be disappointed when they look for new and interesting accusations.
I am probably considered a critic of the Kennedy family. I find the version of JFK that we see in this script to be really nonsensical. It seems almost like it's just a kind of license for them then to switch back to the private lives of the Kennedys, which are admittedly fascinating, but, you know, why not put that out on another entertainment channel then and call it, I don't know, The Sex Lives of the Kennedys? That's fine. But why mix it in with serious history if you're not going to treat the history seriously? I mean, it presents him as simply a sex addict.
What do you do when you're horny? I mean, how can you stand the boredom? I love lobster, but not every night. If I don't have some strange ass every couple of days, I get migraines.
It struck me that the writer wanted to tell as sordid a story as possible and find very little in the Kennedy years that possessed any dignity whatsoever. But a lot of it is just, you know, meretricious, you know, invented stuff designed to basically make John F. Kennedy look like a fool.
She volunteered to work overtime last night. We discussed the ins and outs of politics.
With Jackie here and reporters crawling all over the place?
Her views were stimulating.
It's a cartoon. It's a caricature.
I mean, JFK is making decisions, world-important decisions from his swimming pool while he's in with some babe.
Well, a lot of it is quite nearly pornographic.
Jack and Judy are making love on the water. Gray flannel legs step to the edge of the pool. They belong to Secret Service agent number 2. He's very ill at ease. Jack and Judy keep pumping away, completely unfazed.
Mr. President, sir, I'm sorry to, Mr. Bundy's trying to reach you. He says it's very critical.
It bears no relationship that I can see to the lives of these once living people and the people who are living.
Dad, if I don't get laid every couple of days...
You got a wife upstairs, don't you?
It's not the same. You, of all people, should know that. If I don't have someone new, I get migraines that wreck me. Would you rather I run the country into the ground? I got a meeting.
You're not going anywhere.
You know, why put this on the History Channel? We're pumping so much money into public education in this country. We want to improve the education system so that this country can compete with China and other, you know, world leading countries. Why feed this kind of garbage in something called the History Channel?
I was amazed to find, reading those pages, that every single conversation with the president in the Oval Office or elsewhere in which I, according to the script, participated, never happened.
We have a scene during the Berlin crisis, again in '61, where Jackie suddenly has this confrontation with him and says, I'm going to take the kids and go to the Cape. And he tries to keep her a prisoner in the White House. This is a big, long scene, and it's an important scene in the screenplay. It's trying to make him out as this controlling figure, and as Jackie as someone who was in a prison and wanted to get out of the White House. She was already in Cape Cod all summer. She wasn't in the White House during the Berlin crisis. He was going up to Cape Cod every weekend and seeing her. Complete and utter fabrication, something made up bears no resemblance to the truth, but presented to put him in the worst possible light.
It makes mockery of, let me give you one point. Joe Kennedy was a very devout believer. He was a Catholic.
God damn it.
He went to Mass.
God damn it.
It was a very essential part of who he was. And at one point here, the script has him, quote, "On a wall is a wooden crucifix about 2 feet long. He stares at it for a minute, takes it off the wall, touches the figure of Jesus. Then he breaks the crucifix over his knee."
Oh, God damn it.
I mean, that, no one who's written about Joe, whether people love him, dislike him, whether they write about him as if he's a saint or a sinner or God or the devil, that didn't happen. And it wouldn't have happened. This film is not only extraordinarily anti-Catholic, but it is anti-Irish in a way that I haven't seen in a long, long time.
They talk about buses burning in the summer of 1962. That was the spring of 1961.
Eisenhower preaching to Jack Kennedy, the Russians are going to destroy us. Their army is, 3 times larger than ours. The opposite was the truth. Eisenhower knew that there was no missile gap. Kennedy had run on a missile gap.
They talk about reading the exit polls in 1960. Exit polls weren't even invented until many years later.
I mean, let's take, for example, the creation or the raising of the Berlin Wall.
Offense. I've been an idiot. This whole thing boils down to a question of pedestrian traffic.
Out of nowhere, the scriptwriters have invented a scenario where JFK is responsible for the Berlin Wall.
Khrushchev's losing people that he can't afford to lose. And there'd be no issue if the East Berliners stopped crossing over. I mean, what would we do if our best people were starting to run off to Canada?
Tell them the weather's better in Mexico.
That's ridiculous. John F. Kennedy did not for one moment think that the freedom of West Berliners would be enhanced by sealing off West Berlin from entry by people wanting to be refugees from East Berlin or East Germany, wanting to reunite their families. That's why he denounced it with all sincerity.
I can speak as an authority on JFK, and frankly, it's a travesty. Why do we have, for instance, the Berlin Wall, but we never have the Cuban Missile Crisis? That's probably the most extraordinary test of any president's resolve since World War II. It damn nearly could have led to World War III.
If you are an historian and if you care about the truth, this is very hard stuff to read. And if it's filmed the way it's written, it will be just heartbreaking.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry when I read this. I want to laugh because the portraits are just so god-awful stupid. I want to cry because I fear that if they're successful and they get this thing on the air with credible-looking actors, a generation is going to get its history from this nonsense. Historians had to do a lot of battle with Gone with the Wind. People thought that that was the truth about Reconstruction. Well, it's going to take a long time to undo the damage that's done in this.
It really is alarming. It sort of rather reminds me of when Murdoch took over the Sunday Times, and you just began to see bit by bit a great newspaper being sensationalized and moving into that, what later became Fox News.
And I think this is an effort to derail and tarnish Kennedy before we get to these 50th anniversary memorials to his presidency. And I think that's what this is about.
To me, it's a Republican version of Joseph P. Kennedy that was trotted out 20 or 30 years ago. In fact, it was trotted out when JFK was campaigning to become president. The rich man's ignorant son. Well, that simply isn't true.
That this travesty is to be broadcast on the History Channel makes mockery of those things which I hold very important as a historian.
I've watched a number of documentaries on the History Channel. They're very fine. Why bother with this sort of stuff? This belongs in National Enquirer, and I'm not against National Enquirer. I think that's fun, you know, when you're waiting in the checkout line.
Any network that puts it on better triple their legal staff, because there are relatives and survivors of some of these people, and I think there will be hell to pay.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.